Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. It's KB5 MIQ, big boy. Excuse me, I've out checking cows. Need a little water. We're going. 75HKV had a good idea the other day. We're seeing a lot of questions new techs are answering, and a lot of their answers, a lot of people tell me they should have learned it in their test. You know, a lot of the questions I think should have been covered in the test. But what we're going to do today is I'm going to go start a series of videos, and I'm going to work a couple of sections at a time of the tech question pool and read the question and answers and kind of expound on them a little bit if I can on each answer. Maybe it'll help some of these guys understand some of the new things they're running into when they get into this hobby. Also, I had another good suggestion from HKV. I've hit 366 subscribers. When I hit 500, I'm going to do a little giveaway. I found a supposed to be mint condition 1992 ARRL handbook, hardcover, just like what I've got. And a lot of you guys thinking, man, what do you want to give a book away for? You know, there is a wealth of information available in that book. And everything in it covering operating practices, antennas, feed lines, frequencies, bands, is still applicable today. It may not be up to date on the new digital modes, and you younger guys will be more up on that than we are, but there's a wealth of information in it, and when I hit 500 subscribers, well, I'll tell y'all how we're going to do the giveaway. But for right now, I'm going to start going through some of these questions and reading the answers and expounding a little bit. And I'm using the question pool I'm getting off hamexam.org, and the reason I'm using this one is the way it's formatted. The ARRL one was hard for me to read and get the answers right. In fact, the ARRL just had the answer, didn't have all the choices. So, this is Group TOA, Power Circuits and Hazards, Hazardous Voltage, Fuses, Circuit Breakers, Grounding, Lightning Protection, Battery Safety, and Electrical Code Compliance. Which of the following is a safety hazard of a 12-volt storage battery? Touching both terminals with the hands can cause electric shock, A. B. Shorting the terminals can cause burns, fire, and explosion, B. C. RF emissions from the battery, D. All the choices are correct. The correct answer is B. Shorting the terminals can cause burns, fire, or explosion. And when you're dealing with DC, I worked with DC for a lot of years in my job. It shorts and gets hot fast. You can burn yourself quickly, and a battery will explode. If you've ever seen guys trying to jump a battery off and hook the terminals up wrong, you got a lot of sparks, and about an instant later, you're going to have an explosion. So remember, shorting the terminals can cause burns, fires, explosions. What health hazard is presented by electrical current flowing through the body? A. It may cause injury by heating the tissue. B. It may disrupt the electrical function of the cells. C. It may cause involuntary muscle contractions. All of the choices are correct. One thing to remember on that right there, dealing with electricity, it only takes a ½ amp passing through your heart to stop your heart. And that's one reason a lot of electricians, and I'm an electrician, will tell you, don't ever have both hands in the same circuit at the same time, because if you ground out this one, it's going to pass right through your chest, come out the other hand. So that's just a good safety thing to know when you're dealing with electricity. In the United States, what is connected to the green wire in a 3-wire electrical AC plug? A, neutral, B, hot, C, equipment ground, D, the white wire. It's always going to be C, the equipment ground, and it's usually going to be a bare wire, or in conduit, it'll be a green wire. Now, they need to clarify this a little bit. When you're dealing in Romex, like most residential applications, that equipment ground is going to be a bare 12-gauge wire in a set of 12-2 with ground Romex. In conduit, it will be a green insulated wire. The answer is equipment ground, C. What is the purpose of a fuse in an electrical circuit? To prevent power supply ripple from damaging a circuit, A. B, to interrupt power in case of an overload. C, to limit current to prevent shocks. D, all the choices are correct. The answer is B, to interrupt power in case of an overload. That's what a circuit breaker does. That's what a glass fuse does in your inline fuses. These little blade fuses, it all does the same thing, to interrupt power in case of an overload. Why is it unwise to install a 20 amp fuse in the place of a 5 amp fuse? A, the larger fuse will be likely to blow because it's rated for higher current. B, the power supply ripple would greatly increase. C, excessive current could cause a fire. D, all of the choices are correct. The answer is C. Excessive current could cause a fire. Hey, Ham Radio Cat. Aaron, old buddy, #1 fan. Old Ham Radio Cat made it up here. You want to keep the circuit protected for what it's rated for. And putting a bigger fuse in there, yeah, it'll work. But if it's something that's getting hot, it's just going to cause a fire or cause your circuit to burn up. What is a good way to guard against electrical shock at your station? Use 3 wired cords and plugs for all AC powered equipment. Connect all AC powered station equipment to a common safety ground. Use a circuit protected by a ground fault interrupter. D, all of the choices are correct. Yeah, that's the best way to answer that question. There's something in there I don't agree with, but I'm not going to expound on that. All those choices are correct. Which of the precautions should be taken when installing devices for lightning protection in a coaxial feed line? Coaxial cable feed line. A, include a parallel bypass switch for each protector so it can be switched out of the circuit when running higher power. B, include a series switch in the ground line of each protector to prevent RF overload from inadvertently damaging the protector. C, keep the ground wires from each protector separate and connect to station ground. Mount all the protectors on a metal plate that is in turn connected to an external ground rod. Okay. That's another subject I am going to expand on that one a little bit. When the electrician that taught me and Jeff how to be electricians, one of the things he told us, if you go in business for yourself, do not ever let anybody pay you to install lightning protection, fire protection, or burglar alarm. Burglar alarm, fire protection can be tripped and get bypassed, and you can get sued if it don't work. Lightning protection, he said, I don't care what the engineers say. What they say will protect against lightning. Lightning is lightning, and it's going to be something bad every time. And he said, I don't trust any lightning protection. And honestly, in ham radio, my lightning protection is unplug the radios. I do have my pass-through grounded, but I unplug my radio. But for the purposes of this test, the correct answer is mount all the protectors on a metal plate that is in turn connected to an external ground rod. What safety equipment should always be included in home-built equipment that is powered by 120-volt AC power circuits? A fuse or circuit breaker in series with an AC hot conductor. That's A. B, an AC voltmeter across the incoming power source. C, an inductor in parallel with AC power source. D, a capacitor in the AC power source. The answer is A, a fuse or circuit breaker in series with AC hot conductor, standard house residential wiring. What should be done to all external ground rods or earth connections? A, waterproof them with silicone caulk or electrical tape. Keep them as far apart as possible. B. C, bond them together with heavy wire or conductive strap. D, tune them for resonance on the lowest frequency in operation. C, bonding. Bond them together with a heavy wire conductive strap, and that's the way you do all ground rods. What can happen if a lead-acid storage battery is charged or discharged too quickly? A, the battery could overheat, give off flammable gas, or explode. B, the voltage can become reversed. C, the memory will reduce the capacity of the battery. D, all the choices are correct. The answer is A. The battery can overheat, give off flammable gas, or explode. Okay, this is the last question in electrical. What kind of hazard might exist in a power supply when it is turned off or disconnected? A, static electricity could damage the grounding system. B, circulating currents inside the transformer might cause damage. C, fuse might blow if you remove the cover. D, you might receive an electrical shock from the charge stored in large capacitors, and the answer is D. Capacitors will charge an electrical shock that will knock the fire out of you. So always be careful if you go into a power supply. Okay, the next group is antenna safety, tower safety and grounding, erecting an antenna support, and safely installing an antenna. When should members of a tower work team wear a hard hat and safety glasses? At all times, A, except when climbing the tower. B, at all times except when belted firmly to the tower. C, at all times when any work is being done on the tower. D, only when the tower exceeds 30 feet in height. The answer is C, at all times when any work is being done on the tower. But if somebody drops something, it's not going to be good, good if it hits you on the head. What is a good precaution to observe before climbing an antenna tower? Make sure you wear a grounded wrist strap, A. Remove all tower grounding connections, B. Put on a carefully inspected climbing harness, fall arrestor, and safety glasses, C. D, all of the choices are correct. The answer is C. Put on a carefully inspected climbing harness and safety glasses with a fall arrestor on it. Under what circumstances is it safe to climb a tower without a helper or observer? I'm going to skip to the correct answer on that one. Never. Never climb a tower by yourself. Okay? That's just the other answers don't even make sense. Never climb a tower by yourself. Period. Which of the following is an important safety precaution to observe when putting up an antenna tower? A, wear a ground strap connected to your wrist at all times. B, insulate the base of the tower to avoid lightning strikes. C, look for and stay clear of any overhead electrical wires. D, all of the choices are correct. That answer is C. I assure you, look and stay clear of any overhead electrical wires. I mentioned in an earlier video of mine, back in the 70s, there was a man from one of the towns next to me. I met him years later. Standing on a butane tank while taking a TV antenna down too close to an overhead primary power line, lost control of it. Burnt both arms off at the elbow and burnt both legs off at the knees. Instant quadriplegic. So don't do that around a power line. What is the purpose of a gin pole? To temporarily replace guy wires, to be used in place of a safety harness, to lift tower sections or antennas, to provide a temporary ground. C, to lift tower sections or antennas, that's why you have somebody with you. The climber bolts the gin pole on, and your ground crew winches up the tower sections to you. What is the minimum safe distance from a power line when installing an antenna? A, half the width of your property. B, the height of the power line above the ground. C, half wavelength of the operating frequency. D, enough so that if the antenna falls unexpectedly, no part of it can come closer than 10 feet to the power lines. That's correct answer is D. Even so, if the antenna falls unexpectedly, no part of it can come closer than 10 feet to the power lines. Everybody needs to remember something around primary power. The reason it's so high in the air is you don't have to touch it to get electrocuted. All you got to do is get close enough to it and it will jump out and get you. So you don't want close to that. Which of the following is an important safety rule to remember when using a crank-up tower? A, this type of tower must never be painted. B, this type of tower must never be grounded. C, this type of tower must not be climbed unless retracted or mechanically safety locking devices have been installed. D, all of the choices are correct. The answer is C. This type of tower must not be climbed unless retracted or mechanical safety devices have been installed. You don't want to be climbing one of those triangle crank-up towers and it go to collapsing when you own it, because you're fixing to lose fingers and toes and feet real quick. What is considered to be a proper grounding method for a tower? A. Single 4-foot ground rod driven into the ground no more than 12 inches from the base. A ferrite core RF choke connected between the tower and ground. B. C. Separate 8-foot long grounding rods for each tower leg bonded to the tower and each other. A connection between the tower base and cold water pipe. That answer is C. Separate 8-foot long ground rods for each tower leg bonded to the tower and each other. Which means you're going to hook each leg to a ground rod, and then you're going to loop a ground between the rods so everything's bonded. Why should you avoid attaching an antenna to a utility pole? The antenna will not work properly because of induced voltages, A. B. The utility company will charge you an extra monthly fee. C. The antenna could contact high voltage power lines. D. All of the answers are correct. The answer is C. The antenna could contact high voltage power lines. Which of the following was true when using grounded conductors used for lightning protection? Only non-insulated wire must be used. A. Wires must be carefully routed with precise right-angle bends. Sharp bends must be avoided. Common grounds must be avoided. The answer is C. Sharp bends must be avoided. One thing we learned in electrical school, lightning don't turn corners well. Which of the following establishes grounding requirements for an amateur radio tower antenna? A. FCC Part 97 rules. B. Local electrical codes. C. FAA tower lighting regulations. D. UL recommended practices. The answer is B. Local electrical codes. If you live in the country, you don't have to worry about that. You live in the city, you have that issue to deal with. Also, if you live in an HOA, you got another whole set of problems. Which of the following is good practice when installing ground wires on a tower for lightning protection? Put a loop in the ground system to prevent water damage to the ground system. A. Make sure all bends in the ground wires are clean right-angle bends. C. Ensure the connections are short and direct. D. All the answers are correct. C. Ensure the connections are short and direct. Final question. What is the purpose of a safety wire through a turnbuckle used to tension guy lines? A. Secure the guy if the turnbuckle breaks. B. Prevent loosening of the guy line from vibration. C. Prevent theft or vandalism. D. Deter unauthorized climbing of the tower. The answer is B. To prevent loosening of the guy line. Okay, those two sections where we're going to stop today. I appreciate everybody subscribe to the channel. When we hit 500, we'll do the giveaway. I want to thank everybody who watches me. Appreciate all the support we've been getting with the channel, especially W5DLX, WD5HKV for their help with this. Remember, you got all kinds of Facebook pages out there, club pages to get to. Main trading company, Paris, Texas, excellent place to get your ham radio gear. This is KB5MIQ Big Boy 73.